had come to the depths of the Kaz Mountains to escape the noise of the city. I'm 32 years old, an ordinary man fed up with a monotonous office life, someone who needed solitude. The place where I set up my tent was perfect, a small clearing surrounded by pine trees with a stream flowing nearby. The air grew cooler, the sun began to set. It took me 10 minutes to start the campfire. When the flames rose, warmth spread around me. I pulled out my thermos of coffee from my backpack, took a sip. Bird sounds were slowly fading, giving way to the chirping of night insects. Everything was normal. In fact, it was too normal. I sat across from the fire, watching the flames dance. I pulled out my phone, battery at 23%. No signal anyway. I tossed the phone back into my bag. Then I noticed the bird sounds had completely stopped. The insect sounds too. There was only the crackling of the fire, and even the sound of the stream seemed to have grown distant. I looked around. Darkness had already fallen. The trees were masses of shadow where the firelight couldn't reach. For a moment, I thought I saw movement among the trees to my left. But no, it was just the wind. Wind, but the leaves weren't moving.
I finished my coffee, set the cup down. I threw another log on the fire. The flames rose, illuminating the area a bit more. Right then, I saw something across from me. Where the firelight fell, there was a silhouette, as if someone were sitting there. My heart stopped for a moment. I raised my head, squinted my eyes. No, there was no one across from me. But the shadow was there, on the other side of the fire, in human form, as if someone were sitting there. I stood up. I could hear my heartbeat. "Who's there?" I called out. My voice echoed through the forest. No answer came. I took a few steps, walked around the fire. I looked at where the shadow was. There was nothing there. Just trees, empty ground, nothing. But when I returned to the fire, the shadow was still there. The firelight was reflecting it, as if someone were sitting there. But in reality, there was no one. I swallowed. Maybe it was a tree's shadow. Maybe it was the angle. I sat down, took a breath. Then, to test it, I raised my hand. The shadow across from me raised its hand too. My hair stood on end. I lowered my hand. The shadow lowered its hand too. I told myself it was the wind. But wind doesn't cast shadows.
A step back, a few paces from the fire. My heart was pounding wildly in my chest. This didn't make sense. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe I was hallucinating. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. When I opened my eyes, the shadow was still there, and this time, it was turning its head. I froze. The shadow, slowly, in the firelight, turned toward me, as if someone across from me were really sitting there, and now looking at me. I stepped back a few more paces. I reached for the tent zipper, grabbed my flashlight. I turned on the flashlight, pointed the beam where the shadow was. There was nothing, just trees, empty ground, darkness. I turned off the flashlight. The shadow had returned, and this time, it was standing. My breath caught. The shadow, across from the fire, human-sized, stood motionless. I backed up, my back pressed against the tent. I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight. Without thinking, I pointed the camera at the fire. On the phone screen, nothing was visible. But when I looked with my eyes, the shadow was moving toward me. It wasn't taking steps. It was just approaching, as if as the firelight expanded, it grew closer. I dove into the tent, pulled the zipper closed. I kept the flashlight in my hand on, pressed against the tent fabric, trying to breathe. Outside, I heard a sound, crackling, but it wasn't the crackling of wood. It sounded like footsteps, slow, heavy, walking around my tent. I turned off my flashlight, waited in the darkness. The footsteps stopped. Then, something touched the tent fabric, lightly, as if a finger were touching it. I held my breath. The touch slowly moved around the tent. It came to the zipper, stopped. In the darkness, I knew something was right behind the zipper, and that thing was breathing. Heavy, regular, as if it were listening to me.
I couldn't take it. I turned on my flashlight, unzipped the tent, burst outside. There was nothing. The fire was still burning, but the flames were strangely motionless, as if frozen. I looked around. The forest was completely silent. There was no sound. Then I looked at the firelight. The shadow was still there, but this time it was different because I was standing.
Started running. I plunged into the forest, between the trees, in the darkness, trying to find my way with my flashlight. I didn't look back, but I knew it was following me. Footsteps, my footsteps, same tempo, same weight. As I ran, it ran. When I stopped, it stopped. And when my flashlight beam hit a tree, I saw my shadow, but my shadow wasn't behind me. It was in front of me. Where the firelight ended, I saw that thing, but that thing wasn't looking at me. That thing was acting like me.